I am a woman of a certain age, I think is how we have to refer to it these days. So I am now 52 years old and I didn't start doing comedy. Are you the same?
I'm 52. I'm 53 in July, so it's okay.
Love it. So that's absolutely perfect. So you are my target audience, Nina. This is perfect. What I recognise, and I think a lot of us do, is that women sort of our age aren't necessarily all that represented when it comes to entertainment. I think it seems to be the case that sometimes, not always, but sometimes it seems to be perfectly fine for men to age, whereas for women there's a certain stigma attached to women as we age, certainly when it comes to putting yourself out there, being an entertainer. And now, don't get me wrong, there are plenty of brilliant women who don't whinge and whine on about it like I do. But it does seem to be that extra bit more difficult once you reach a certain age to be taken seriously as an artist or singer or comedian or whatever it might be that you want to do. How old am I? A guess gone. No, guess. Just guess, because like people are always really surprised. Go on, no, guess. 53? Well, you're supposed to think what you think and then knock 10 years off. What do you mean you did? Have always wanted to, ever since I was a kid, I've always wanted to do some sort of entertainment. You know, when I grew up, I wanted to be Barbara Streisand. You know, that was the dream. Unfortunately, I was a bit rubbish at that. So, and I've always loved comedy. Love comedy. As a teenager or just a preteen as well, I grew up loving things like The Young Ones, which my parents wouldn't let me watch because seen as so controversial and rude, and but also it was a time, there was this strange crossover period when I can remember there would be The Young Ones, which my parents wouldn't let me watch, but we were all allowed to sit down together as a family to watch the Benny Hill show, which is kind of weird, you know, sort of, that was the accepted okay kind of comedy.
That's really interesting. I know, that was accepted.
There is absolutely a place for all of that. I love Carry On films, for example, absolutely love them. But it was an interesting time in history where I think comedy became, it was recognised that there was more than one kind of way that you could laugh. And, you know, there was more than just boobs to laugh at when it came to women. And so although interestingly, I've kind of taken those sorts of themes sort of to do with sexuality and to do with what it's like being a woman, certainly of a certain age as well, and run with that really. So that's what I find very interesting, is that how comedy has changed over the years, what we find funny, what it's like to be a woman trying to make your way in the entertainment industry, especially when it comes to trying to make people laugh, what people's attitudes are like towards that.
Single for quite a long time now. It's a bit of a worry actually, because your body changes obviously as you get older. I can't speak for men, but certainly as women, I have to shave things now that I never used to have to shave. You know, I have to shave my toes now. And I've had other women say to me, oh, I've always had to do that. Well, that's fine, because at least that means then that you remember to do it. But I keep forgetting to shave my toes. And it's been quite a long time since I've been intimate with a gentleman. And I'm worried that one day, when that day comes, I'm going to be stood there in front of him in all my naked glory, and he's going to look at me and go, are you going to take your slippers off? I don't know why he's from Tipton.
I have my own comedy show, for example, which is called Avoid Excessive Cleavage and Other Advice to Ignore, because I found that once I hit about the age of 40, I started getting bombarded by lots of articles about, you know, once you reach a certain age, you shouldn't be wearing this, you shouldn't be doing that, you should make sure you're behaving in this way. And one of the pieces of advice was avoid excessive cleavage, just wear a nice blouse, you know, which really made me massively want to rebel and do something quite the opposite. But I didn't.
Cleavage is never wrong, you know, to be honest. Never wrong.
The more cleavage, the better, you know, or if that's not what you want to do, that's fine too. You know, whatever works for you. It's the same, I think, no matter what age you are, as long as you're not hurting anybody else and you're happy, do you know what? Whatever floats your boat, just do whatever you want to do. I didn't start comedy until I was in my sort of mid-40s. And that was interesting because, and now obviously as well, I find I'll always be the oldest person in the green room, but kind of, one of the babies as regards experience in the industry. So, I can be in a room with a group of people in their late 20s who started doing it in their late teens, and they look at me as if I'm going to be some grandmother of comedy. And I have to go, oh, no, actually, I've only been doing it for 5 minutes compared to you.
Now, what was your first comedy gig when you first thought, right, okay, I'm going to do this? Where did you go and how did you go about doing that?
Well, I always describe this as I cheated, I think, because like I said, I'd always fancied it. I'd always been interested in watching comedians and who doesn't like a laugh, And I always thought it was so incredibly brave, so much more so than perhaps being a singer in a band or something, because although I think that's absolutely brilliant too, it's not quite, I don't feel like you're bearing your soul in quite the same way as you are if you're a comedian. So I'd always thought, I wouldn't be able to do that. I'd be too scared to do that. And then a comedian who is very, very brilliant indeed, called James Cook, who is Midlands based. He runs courses on stand-up comedy. I didn't know you could do courses on stand-up comedy, but for this particular one that he was doing at the time, at the end of the 6-week course, there was a showcase, but it was raising money for charity. And that's why I say I was cheating, because I think I sort of went, if it's for charity, even if I'm absolutely rubbish, nobody can be mean about it because it's for charity. So, can't lose. So I thought, well, I'll go and do this and have a crack at it and see how I get on. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Just met some absolutely brilliant people. It was almost like a little sitcom in itself, this group of people desperately wanting to learn how to do comedy and all just having a good old crack at it. And we'd meet up week after week and just enjoy that. And so, then it got to the end of those 6 weeks. We did the showcase when all friends and family came. So that was absolutely lovely. It was a huge sort of big love-in of all these very supportive people at a proper comedy club in Birmingham, which was an incredible experience. Very, very lucky to have had that as my first ever comedy gig, and just had an absolute blast. Just absolutely loved it. And the high was that sort of thing that I thought, I want to do this again, I want to experience this again. So decided to keep going. But then, of course, I was very spoilt with that first ever gig because, as I say, proper comedy club, lots of friends and family for all these different people there, just had an absolute blast. And then had to go through the massive reality check of, actually, when you first start trying to become a comedian, it means being in the back rooms of some very dingy pubs in places you wouldn't dream of going to normally, talking to people that weren't even expecting a comedian there, and sometimes it'd just be two men who just want to have a quiet pint with their dog, and there's this random woman stood there trying to make them laugh about things that don't necessarily relate to them at all. So went from sort of that fantastic high, brilliant comedy club to some very dingy, dodgy pubs, and then also some nice pubs and clubs and all kinds of different places that I've ended up doing comedy at. And I think, again, coming back to the age thing, because I'm that bit older, I've sort of I decided, especially after when lockdown lifted, I really decided to go for it. So I just kind of hit the ground running and thought, okay, it's either, do it or don't do it kind of thing. And I just decided to do as many gigs as I possibly could. So I gig as much as I possibly can now. And I've reached a point where, it's half of my living now. When I first started doing comedy, I was a teacher. I was a full-time secondary school teacher, just sort of doing open mic nights in London the night before. And then I'd turn up at school the next morning and I'd walk in and people would say, did I see on Facebook that you were in London last night? I'm like, yeah. I'd be walking around with these like circles under my eyes and exhausted, but it was worth it. It was fantastic, But But then it came to a point where that just started to get a little bit too much, I think. And when some of the students found some of my material online, and I had to have a meeting with HR and go through that was one of the most mortifying experiences of my life.
So what material did they find online?
Well, it was the kids found, it was really quite a harmless video, but it was only the worst thing about it is it was one of my earliest gigs, so it wasn't very good.
Oh no.
It was okay. It was at Hot Water in Liverpool, and they used to just automatically, whoever performed there, they used to just automatically post every single video unless you specifically told them that you didn't want them to. And I was just very excited to have been able to appear at Hot Water. That was just so cool. But like I say, I'd only done a handful of gigs, so it was posted. Kids found it. Of course they did. If I sent them home with, find 10 quotes from Macbeth, you'd think I was asking them to cut their own leg off with a rusty knife. But if I changed my name, I went all the way to Liverpool, but no, they found that. And you can imagine that went around the school like wildfire, which in hindsight is actually very funny and really quite sweet that they were even bothered, What experience though. I just settled down this really naughty year 9 class, and they'd just gotten really, really quiet. And there was a girl at the back of the class who had obviously watched the video and took a part of it completely out of context and saw her opportunity when there was absolute silence in the whole class. Shot her hand up in the air and she said, Miss, I've seen a video of you and you said you'd show a man your boobs for £50. And I think fair play, miss. And that was it. Lesson gone.
Brilliant.
So that, you can imagine then, can't you? There was an hour of, did you really say that, miss? Why would you do that, miss? It's supposed to do that, miss. Oh my God. So parents, other teachers, HR, So long story short, I decided that maybe if I wanted to continue being able to do comedy without those kinds of situations occurring on a regular basis, that I should probably, do it properly. So that's what I do now. So about half of my income now comes from comedy, which even saying that now, I can't quite believe it. I tutor now. I tutor online, and I largely teach kids who are in other countries to keep it as safe as possible.
That makes perfect sense.
So it's for the best. I don't want to end up on the front of the Daily Mail or anything, you can just see it, can't you, that headline.
Where do you gig? I mean, do you have somebody booking the gigs for you, or do you do that yourself? How does that work?
I do that myself. I don't have an agent or a manager or any of those things at the moment. It would be lovely to reach a point where somebody wants to do that for me. But at the moment, I do all of that by myself, completely self-sufficient when it comes to admin. I travel all over the country, really, wherever they'll have me. I mean, at the moment, I'm based in Tamworth in Staffs, so only about 20 minutes from Birmingham, and it's a really, really handy place to be. So I can, I'm pretty much equidistant from most places, aren't we? Being literally in the Midlands. So I travel all over the place. So, for example, a couple of weeks ago, I was in Darlington. But this coming Friday, I'm going to be in Lyme Regis. But I also do quite a lot relatively locally. So I do a lot in Nottingham, Leicester, Birmingham, Coventry. But all over the place. To be honest, I'll just go wherever they'll listen to me, So if people want me, I'll be there.